Today on the podcast, back on the podcast actually, is a legend from Austin, Texas, Mitch Ammons. Mitch is a 2:14 twice, I believe, Olympic marathon trials qualifier, and he recently PR'd in the marathon running 2:14. He's an absolute stud across multiple distances, and he's got one of the most insane stories in the sport of running. I highly recommend checking out my first conversation with him if you're more curious on his background. But today's conversation centers a lot around that breakthrough performance in the marathon, what led into it, as well as you can assume based off the title of this video, some of his, you could say, unorthodox training methods, more specifically in regards to like sleep and nutrition, but why he thinks those things actually allow him to perform at his best in the sport. I love this conversation. Mitch has an energy about him that always makes our conversations extra special, and the wisdom he brings and the energy he brings always makes me walk away from our conversations a better version than I found myself before, and I'm confident that will be the same for you. You guys are going to enjoy this one a ton. If you do, please give us a follow so you don't miss more conversations like this in the future. Give us a 5-star review, takes next to no time, and make sure you are following the podcast so that you never miss another episode. And then my last request for you, share the podcast with a friend. That is the easiest way in which we can grow. And with all these notes aside, enjoy my conversation with the man, the myth, the legend, Mitch Ammons. Ladies and gentlemen, back on the podcast, this time not in Nick Bear's fancy studio. He's probably somewhere with icy roads outside of his window, and I'm here with 19 inches of snow outside of mine. So less glamorous on round two, but nonetheless an honor and a privilege to speak with a man who I've looked up to for quite some time, and loved my conversation with him last year. I remember, Mitch, after our conversation, I was like, man, I could do 5 more of these right here, right now. So we're doing a second one. Honor and privilege to speak with you again, and congrats on a couple minutes faster in the marathon. That's why we do it.
That's right, a couple minutes faster. Thanks for having me.
Got to ask you, how many Coca-Colas are we in on the day?
I've had a Diet Coke this morning.
There we go.
I'm drinking coffee. Start. I'm drinking coffee today though because it's a long one.
Who has a worse diet, you or Jeff?
Probably me. It's funny.
I'm a little concerned about Jeff's caffeine intake.
Yeah, he's crazy, but I think it gets to a point where it's just like water. It just doesn't really have an effect.
It's funny. I had mutual friend on the podcast. I've had him on twice now, but the last conversation, Dan Churchill, and I was asking him specifically about you because I think he brought you up through his series he does on YouTube, kind of doing these day in the lives with athletes, giving them nutrition insights. And I said, I know about Mitch's diet. How much faster do you think he could go if he implemented every single thing you wanted him to? And I forget what his response was. It wasn't anything astronomical, but he said you could be a little bit faster. I'm curious for you.
Yeah, that's funny you say. That's funny you say that because up until the they were 2021, but 2020 trials that got postponed to 2021. I was like so strict about my diet, nutritional value. I tracked my calories. I didn't eat any fried food. I didn't drink any sodas. I was like just on it. And then after the trials, I was like, I'm going to take a break from all this. Had some fried chicken, had some Dr. Pepper, had some, other, my sugar, I've always had sugar. Like I've always been a dessert guy, but that kind of took a whole nother meaning of almost a fourth meal or a third meal at the end of the day. But my whole point is that after the 2021 trials, I stopped all of that and I never went back to it. I've completely cut out vegetables and leafy greens because they hurt my stomach. And I've continued to get better, and I'm better than I've ever been prior. And so maybe there's something to it. Maybe there's not. So,
So the key for like a 2:14 marathon is drink more Coca-Cola. Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, it worked. I drink a couple a day.
Yeah, it's funny you bring this up because my question was going to be, but you kind of answered it for me. So maybe just elaborate on my question.
Sure.
Do you almost feel like if you were super dialed in, to a T, even if you worked with a sports dietitian who realized that leafy greens weren't the best and, concocted the perfect 3 meals with the perfect snacks and weighed everything, knowing you a little bit, it seems like it would take the joy and fun and like lightness that you bring to running and it would take that away, and you almost probably wouldn't run as fast. Do I have a pulse on the trigger there?
Yeah, I had not thought of that, but you make a great point. Everything was just like eating was like a chore. Like I'm eating these food that I don't really love because I think that I need the nutrition, and I think I need this amount of protein, and I think I need this amount of carbohydrate. But I don't actually think it really matters. And this guy once told me, as Americans, our diet, we basically get everything we need, aside from probably some nutritional value. But as far as protein and carbs, like just our daily diet is pretty much good enough. Do I think I could be better? I don't know. I think this last build and this last race went about as good as it could have gone, even in the best conditions. Say I didn't have my job, say I was eating perfectly, had a nutritionist, all these things. I don't think the build would have gone any better. It literally went perfectly. The race literally went perfectly. So I don't know. I guess we'll never find out, but
why do you think people are so obsessed with nutrition? When I have sports dietitians on the podcast, like registered sports dietitians, those episodes almost always, you can guess, will perform better than, the bottom 90%. And then even the newsletter that we have, I don't write it, but professional running coach Alex Osberg, friend and mentor, he writes it for me. Really good read. The 1 or 2 times he's written about nutrition, those are top 3 editions in terms of most popular. I feel like in America specifically, we have this hyper obsession with nutrition, whereas I just had on amazing guy, if you don't know him, Andreas Almgren. Do you know this guy?
Yeah.
3 European records in the last year. It's like, what's your diet like to run 128 miles a week, dude? And he's just like, a lot of carbs. And it's just the most simple response ever. He's just like, a lot of pasta, a lot of Morton. And he's just like, clearly doesn't care outside of just like, I just eat a bunch of carbs. But if I talk to, the average American runner or like a hobby jogger who's trying to break 3, they would almost care more about what percent of grass-fed, grass-finished their ground beef is than like any professional runner would. It seems anyways.
No, I think I agree with that. I also think, though, that when you get above 100 miles, 110 miles a week, it's really just like, what calories can you get down? You just need calories, and carbs are obviously the best because that's what we burn as fuel. It turns to glycogen, and that's literally what fuels our muscles. I don't want to I don't want to say something like controversial, because I do know there's a lot of people that really pay attention to this kind of thing, and it works for them. Unfortunately for me, it was not fun, and it didn't feel good. And like you said, it kind of took the joy out of it. And this is also very unhealthy, so, take it for what it is. But I literally look forward to like doing a good workout and then treating myself for a great breakfast. Like, that is what gets me through 90% of my workouts, is thinking about what I'm going to get afterwards. When you get up to running 100 miles a week or 110 miles a week, it's kind of like, just eat what you can, everything and anything. You had mentioned that maybe that sort of dieting takes the fun out of it and the joy out of it. And that's for sure. I have admittedly a pretty unhealthy relationship with food, but it works for me. And my day is a series of different treats, or like, get this done and I can have a coffee, or get this done and I can have a Zen. And then my workouts are like, get this done and you can have 3 entrees for breakfast. And that is, I love eating, and we have such a great restaurant scene that is a huge part of why I do it. It's the joy of like working really, really hard with my teammates, and then we all go out to breakfast, and that's like a major highlight. And some years ago, I didn't used to do that, and I wouldn't probably even get enough calories, even though they were the things that were supposed to be healthy and nutritious. But I was too focused on my calorie intake in it that it wasn't too much. I think regardless, I have an unhealthy relationship with food, but this way, at least, like, I get to enjoy it all.
I also think, and if you disagree on any of this, feel free to chime in or debate me. I think like we have a large portion of a younger audience, a lot of very dedicated high school collegiate runners. I think if you're in high school, I think you should only be worried about eating enough. I don't even
I
think you should
agree.
be worried about like quality of food. I think for me, it's funny. Like I love the Rich Roll podcast, but I think that again, the problem, I was talking to my brother about this on the phone yesterday. The problem with this whole space is we're talking to very specific groups without realizing that other groups are listening. So
Right.
it's like Rich Roll is big into plant-based diets. For a certain group of people, I think that makes a lot of sense, even from a health perspective. But like for a 15-year-old boy who's growing and developing and trying to be a great distance runner, I got the wrong message,
Yeah. No.
and there are probably ways that I implemented that did not help me or got injured because of it. So it's really important if you're listening, like know who you're listening to and what the group they're trying to speak to is, because I think we totally missed the mark, specifically on Instagram. If you go through your
Mm-hmm.
Reels feed, you'll find 5 different nutrition opinions. And that's where it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, if you're working hard and you're an athlete, you should be focused on quantity way over quality. And again, you know these people better because you're around them more in the Austin community. But the BPN athletes I know who are like total specimens, like just look freakishly fit and have ridiculous results. You being one of them, like they seem to care way more about how much they're eating. And then once they hit that, maybe they start caring about some macros, if at
Mm-hmm.
all.
Yeah, I think you make a very, very, very good point. What works for me is not going to work for others. I'm 36 years old. I'm not growing. My hormones have leveled out. Like my bone density is where it's going to be for the rest of my life. I don't give advice on this podcast. I am not sitting here telling other people what they should do because I don't believe that. You are 1,000% correct. Especially like the younger runners, like that is men and women. It is so, so, so important to get the right amount of calories because otherwise you get hurt and you can do lifelong damage, especially with like your bone density. If you're not getting enough calories when you're young, you messed up your bone density for the rest of your life. That stuff doesn't really come back. So yes, I'm very glad that you said that because I'm not giving advice. I know what I do is not great. It works for me and I still do well. I kind of get by, but I love it and I love how I feel and I love my little rituals and routines. But this is not advice. I do not recommend doing it. Somehow it has worked for me, and that's about as far
Yeah,
as
but
I'm
I
going to
think the
take
advice is
it.
good. Oh, yeah. I mean, all you're saying is I try to eat enough and I don't really look too much at what I eat. I think
Yeah, that's
that side of the
fair.
spectrum is way healthier for anyone. So I'll say this, I'll combat you and I'll say, Mitch might not say take his advice. I'll say take what Mitch is saying because most people are on this side of the spectrum, which is, okay, a Friday night before a long run with my friends and I can't have Swedish fish because it's going to ruin my long run tomorrow. I used to
Yeah.
think that way. There's no way
Uh-huh.
that's scientifically true. In fact, I think there's actually science saying that, I remember Vanessa Frazier. I listened to a podcast with her way back in the day when she ran for Bowerman Track Club when they were all that they are. And she said she'd feel better for the workouts and long runs when she had ice cream the night before because she was
Yeah.
just burning so much. And so, yeah, if we're going to go to extremes, you know, outside of like having a sweet treat with every single meal, yeah, just eat whatever you can, eat until you're full, and probably eat a little bit more than you think you have to. And I think the like Alex, the guy who writes my newsletter, has a great point. He's like, the cost of being like 1 or 2 pounds, quote unquote, overweight, if we want to even have that discussion, far outweighs the negative detriments to like being underfueled. There's no comparison.
1,000%. Absolutely. Not even a comparison. Depleted, you're not going to get anywhere. Um, I think, man, I heard you said a lot of good stuff there, and I wanted to piggyback, but I don't even remember what I was saying or what I was going to say. But you really hit the nail on the head. Um, I think younger people need to be a little more cautious um, about getting enough calories. Uh, I also think, and I see this often, people get into their heads. Maybe they didn't get their pre-race meal before their workout, like their normal thing. That doesn't matter. That like that. I've never been concerned. I mean, okay, that's not true. I have been concerned with that sort of thing in the past. If I didn't get my exact evening ritual the night before a workout, the morning I wake up, I'm like, oh, well, this workout's already over. Like I've already messed it up because I didn't have everything lined up. Um, I had this runner tell me one time, he and it was concerning like race day morning. And he was like, look, it doesn't matter what you ate the day before. It doesn't matter if you got any sleep. It doesn't matter if you're tired. All that matters is those 8 to 10 weeks prior to this race. Did you do that work? If the answer is yes, then you're ready on race day. Nothing else, none of those little external factors don't make any difference. They don't make any difference. What's going to matter is that you've done the training, and the training doesn't have to be perfect. Like, as long as you've done the miles that are needed and you've done some workouts and you've done some long runs, I don't think there's like a secret sauce. I think it's just basic science and fitness. If you do those things, you will be ready on race day.
What's your take, going from like one thing to the next, nutrition? What's your take on sleep? And specifically as someone, and let's talk specifically about your career here. You're successful in real estate. Running is not your full-time job. Those who know you a little bit, or Jeff or Bad City, that you're a part of, you guys work out ridiculously early in the morning. So there are certain, I'm not talking to a pro athlete, just for the audience to know, who can hyper optimize their life for all of these things. You don't probably have the ability to sleep 10 hours like other people.
No, and this is
I'm prefacing that just in case you say you sleep 5 hours.
I do. I sleep about 5 or 6 hours if I'm lucky every night. I go to bed at 11 and I wake up 5 every day.
By choice or naturally?
By choice, by necessity. If I could sleep all day, it's just work. Work has picked up the last 2 years. It has become my priority. Running unfortunately takes second place. But that's okay, because priorities change. I've got a wife and I've got a wife now, and that's more important to me, is providing for her and our family. But I think you can do both. And I sort of have shattered some of these beliefs that I had, one of which was nutrition. Before the 2021 trials, I thought I had to be perfect about nutrition to do well. Since then, I mean, it's been some years and I've done some decent races, and then just more recently, the 214. I just don't think that stuff matters. And sleep's a different one, because I know you recover when you're sleeping. But I don't have the opportunity to sleep as much as I would like to because of my job. But it has worked fine. Like, it has literally worked fine. I ran more miles. I did 4 weeks consistently at 120 miles a week, or over 120. And I think like 7 over 100. And I was obviously fatigued, but I was fine and I got through it, and it sucked, but like, it was manageable and it worked. It worked great, actually. So I had all these limiting beliefs. And for example, like I said, with nutrition, if I didn't get, 8 hours of sleep the night before, I'm like, oh, well, this workout's toast, or this race is ruined. Like, my training block is not going to be what I wanted it to be because of these little things. And it's just not true. And no one really told me that. I had to kind of just figure it out on my own. But I don't want to say it as an overarching like umbrella for everybody, because maybe people do need that rest and sleep. But for me, like, out of necessity, I just didn't get it, and it worked out just fine. So I kind of have a different mentality towards it all now.
Yeah, great thoughts. An important distinction there. Notice how your response in regards to why you sleep so little is you have a wife and work has picked up, not you were out late drinking with the boys and playing video games. I think these are important distinctions, because a lot of people, like for me, for instance, I'm not married yet. I live by myself. I basically have full autonomy over my schedule. I can schedule this podcast when I want to, or shift things around. I don't have an office that I go into every morning at 9. So again, for me, it's easier to pile up the excuses for staying up later, or even I think there is such a thing as oversleeping and just being lazy. A question I want to ask you off of all these thoughts is like, okay, if you hyper locked in your sleep, right? You stop just in a unicorn world. You don't have work. Your only job is running. I'll throw out a crazy number there. You maybe run 210 and you go from middle of the pack at the Olympic trials to close to front of the pack, but probably still not making a team in the 210 range. For you, can you speak to I'm just putting words in your mouth, but I'm assuming it's true. you want a more full life outside of running. Running is something you do. It's not who you are. And it's not even necessarily the biggest thing. Last time we talked, I was struck where it was like, you're like, it's all about the community, and running is just an outlet for the community. All these things piled up make running 2:14 worth it, but you wouldn't sacrifice 9 of the 10 things to run 2:10. Is that correct?
That is correct. There would have been a time that I would have. Absolutely, there would have been. I would have sacrificed everything to run 2:10. And at this point, I'm super stoked at where my life is and where it's going. And 2:14 is enough. I mean, obviously, I'm going to try. I'm going to try and run faster, but if I don't, that's totally fine with me. I was also fine at 2:16. Like, it was I was very proud of that, and I'm very proud of 2:14. Will I try to run faster? Yeah. Will I do the exact same thing I did for this last marathon? Yes. In a perfect world, I mean, yeah, I don't, at this point, I would not give up what I've got outside of running to achieve more in running. While it would be awesome, it's just not my priority. You know, there's so much more in life that is just bigger than running. And like you said, it is my outlet to the community. It is my best friends, my wife, my clients, everything. And I've said this in multiple podcasts, everything good in my life is in some way, shape, or form related to running or the running community. And so with that being said, I'm never going to give it up. Like, it is my home. But like, there's more than just chasing a fast time. Like, there's so much more to it.
When a few questions running through my mind, I'm thinking what direction I want to go here. I guess in regards to the 2:14 specifically, BPN, their media team's just world class, remarkable. They released a video, I think, of you ripping 800s or something of the sort, and you just looked so dialed in. Maybe it was just the shots, maybe it was the color grade, I don't know, but the feet pounding on Yellow Jacket Stadium, ripping, I don't know, 2:15s. I was like, I almost reached out to you before the marathon because it just seemed like you knew what was coming if you were following you at that time. What was the magic in this build, despite it being very similar to previous builds? I think you wrote in some Instagram caption that like everything clicked this block, and you knew you were ready for something.
And you're asking why that happened?
Yeah. Why do you think that was? What do you think made this block special? What created the magic?
I think I've gone over this 100 times trying to figure it out because I want to do it again. I don't think I'll ever have a build like that again. I don't think I'll ever have a race like that again. But I think there's a few factors. I think the biggest one was I was motivated. Am I always motivated? No, hardly ever. I'm disciplined. I set out I put my schedule for the week and I stick to it religiously, no matter what. My schedule is, without it, I have nothing. Like it is incredible, really. And so I think a big part of it was like, I wanted to run fast. I wanted to have my breakthrough race. The past 3 years, I'd run the same time. And that happens. And from what and this is like kind of what I've heard / gathered, it's like, if you have 3 races and they kind of all go the same, you're either going to have a really great race or a really bad race. And so I was banking on the really good race. I kind of stumbled. I have said this a couple of times too. I stumbled onto this fitness. It was probably September, October. And I had started doing workouts again for the BPN 50 miler. And I wanted to just kind of, jam some fitness into myself just so I could be competitive at that 50 miler. And I started doing these workouts and they started going really well. And I was like, oh shit, okay, I'm onto something here. Like, I'm getting really fit kind of out of nowhere. I need to run a marathon. And so I talked with Jeff and I was like, hey man, I think I'm going to drop out of this 50 miler and just continue this build into December 7th for the marathon. And I really just think I wanted it so bad. I wanted this one more than I wanted 2021. I wanted it really bad. I knew I could do it. And on social media, like I also recorded, I got a good documentation of my workouts because I knew that they were going to be special. And and then I just kept getting better. I did have like a bit of a not a break, but work slowed down a little bit in the fall. It typically does in real estate. And I had this little window of like, I can kind of put all in on running, put myself all in on running. And I did. And I just, no matter what, I'd work until 8 p.m. and it was 8:30 and I'm like, I still have to do my double, and I would just go do it no matter what. I think it was a combination of hitting my mileage no matter what. And then the workouts take care of themselves when you do that. I also, I kind of lost my train of thought here. Where was I going with this? Oh, I mean, I don't necessarily think running is like a momentum sport, but I was building momentum with these workouts. And so the next one, they just kept getting better and better because of that momentum. And then race day, I had talked about running 2:15:59 on social media because what I wanted to do was run the standard, get it out of the way, and then just be done. And I needed 3 seconds off of my PR. From there, I knew I could do that because I was in better shape than I had been. Did I think I could run 2:14 and change? I did, but I didn't really want to try because when you try for those breakthroughs, you sometimes, don't even get your PR, don't even get the qualifier. But when I was kind of getting up to it, I was saying 2:15, but really in my head, I was thinking 2:14. And the workouts were all checking out. I had some wild long run workouts. Oh, here's another thing. And this is just part of my training. And this is a flaw in the past, but I always would focus on, like, so say we had 4x3 miles with a mile float in between. I would hit those 3 mile segments as hard as I could because it looked sick on Instagram and Strava, right? Like hitting those, getting down into the 440s, like that is just, it just looks sick. But then my floats would be like an easy jog. Like I'd be up at a 7:30 pace again. So this time I really, really focused on, I wasn't doing it for social media. I wasn't doing it for those sick intervals in the 440s. Like I was doing it for myself to get better. And I really focused on the floats. And so if my on intervals were 5-minute pace, 4:55 or whatever, I really, really tried to keep my floats, no more than 30 seconds slower. So I really averaged about 5:20, 5:30 for my floats. And that's significant because it made the volume of the workout, that average was close to or below my marathon pace. And so when I was doing that in practice, and I was like, I have a float, obviously, like I get a break, but it's a fast break. It's 5:20 pace or 5:30 pace. And putting those workouts together, focusing on the float, while it's not glamorous or pretty, it took me so much further. I didn't care what Strava was going to say. I didn't care on my Instagram post, my on intervals, what those times were. I didn't care about that. And it really, really made a huge difference. And so the combination of the floats and the on part of the workout would average like my marathon pace or faster. And so when I started hitting those, I was like, I'm going to do this. And then so race day, or do you have any follow-ups on that? Cause I want to talk about race day.
Yeah, real quickly to that,
Sure.
And then go right into race day. How differently do you think people would train if Strava and Instagram didn't exist and they could never talk about their training with anyone outside of their specific training group?
Yeah, I am guilty of this big time. I mean, obviously, I think it makes a huge difference. I think focusing on the workout and how the workout is supposed to be run should be number one. And obviously, it wasn't for me. I was very, very focused on like hitting those times that just look sick, and changing that changed everything. It's hard, and I'm guilty of it very much so. And so I don't want to say like, don't worry about that stuff, because it is cool and it is great. And it's also an accomplishment to be able to do that. But I think focusing on the bigger picture is going to get better results.
It's funny because I remember back in high school when I was like training ridiculously hard, when a workout wasn't going as well, so bricked, but it's what happened. In the back of my head, the first thought I would have when I was like slipping off of a split is like, what am I going to say to Strava today?
Yeah. Oh,
bro. Crazy.
It's so funny.
Rather than like what's best for me in this moment, it was like, how do I salvage this workout so that the rest of the world doesn't think poorly about me in this workout?
Oh man, I'm right there with you. I've done it a million times. Unfortunately, no one gives a shit about either of us. We're the only ones who care. Or fortunately.
Exactly. Fortunately. Yeah, the world is so big. We're so small. We think everyone thinks about us. In reality, the only people who care, like we only care about ourselves at the end of the day.
You know what? People want to see us trying hard. Like just putting ourselves out there. And I enjoy that content too. When I see that someone really just gave it their all and did their best, like that shit's admirable.
That's why they make the finish line reels for the last place finisher of every marathon, and those always go viral. They're trying harder than debatably Kipchoge just flying along.
That's right. That is right. That is absolutely right.
Yeah. Okay, race day. I didn't want to interrupt.
No, that's good. So race day, again, like I've never been this confident in my ability lining up at the starting line. I'm usually nervous. I'm nervous for how I'm going to perform, and I'm nervous for how bad it's going to hurt. I wasn't nervous. I was like chomping at the bit to just get to the starting line. And that's a great place to be, because usually it's like, I'm dreading it. I'm like, oh, I just want to get this race over with so I can be done with the training. But I think we really lined up the training well. It was a short block. It was shorter than most, which is typically what I need these days. Longer ones, I just get burnt out because we train really hard. But yeah, I lined up at the starting line, just ready to go. I was like, let's just let that gun go off and go. But yeah, I mean, on race day, you sort of hope for like 7 out of 10 things to go right. And that's a huge win. That Sunday, 10 out of 10 things went right, from everything to my nutrition, and which is insane. Like, and we can get into that in a second. Yeah, I mean, it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, tell me about the nutrition. Obviously, for a lot of athletes, that's where things can go wrong. You said 10 out of 10 things went right, so I'm assuming it went right.
Yeah, I was on Chat GPT. I've not really ever been a big Chat GPT person, but the day before the marathon,
can I interrupt you super fast?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Funny story. So in September, this must have been right after we had recorded a podcast with each other. I ran a marathon, and just hilarious ChatGPT story. I don't know if I've said this publicly. I ran with my phone, and I hadn't it was not a big training block. So I just ran within myself. My goal based on all of the minimal 20-mile weeks I did was just break 3:15. So what I would do is you'd pass the mile markers, and watches a lot of times are ahead of mile markers. So I wasn't going off of my watch so much as I was going off the mile markers. So I'd know I'd come through at mile 15, goal 3:14:59. And I just went, I was like, oh, I can go. I have my phone with me, open up ChatGPT app. I go 3:14:59 goal. I just came through at 20 miles. Here's the overall time. What pace do I have to maintain the rest of the race to hit 3:14:59? And I did that, I kid you not, every mile for like the last 10 miles. And the people around me probably thought I was a total goof, but it totally worked. It was helpful.
That's incredible. So similar story.
Okay.
Social media, you hear these guys trying to push the limits on carb intake, right? Like 70 grams an hour is no longer the suggested amount. Like I think Rory Linkletter does like 150 grams per hour or something. So I was on Chat GPT the night before. So a few things. I had rolled my ankle on the Wednesday. We had our last workout. I sprained my ankle back in August. I rolled it again in October when I was out of town in New York City. It swells up, it bruises all over again. And so on the workout prior to race day, I was on my cool down. I was on the second mile of my cool down. I was about to turn around and come back, and I rolled my ankle in a pothole, and I couldn't walk, and I limped my way down the street, and this guy gave me a ride back to the track. And I was so frustrated, but I knew, because I had rolled it recently from my original sprain, that a couple of days it'll be okay. And so the night before the race, I'm on ChatGPT and I'm like, okay, can a person run with a sprained ankle? And it was like, while it's not advised, there have been marathoners who have run with a sprained ankle, maybe taped it up a little bit, and they were just fine. And then they took time off afterwards. And so I was like, great, easy, I'll do that. So I actually taped my ankle for the first time the morning of the race. It really, really helped me. It gave me just like a little bit of stability in my ankle that just kind of gave me a little more confidence. But that was just another story. No one knows about that. I haven't said anything, but yeah, my ankle was purple and swollen and the tops of my shoes were pushing up against it and it hurt so bad. But
ChatGPT saved the day.
ChatGPT saved the day. So another thing I was asking Chat was, I typically take like 7 gels in a marathon. And what I was asking is increasing my carb intake going to help me? And what it said was, if you've practiced your carbs, so your body typically can only absorb 60 to 70 grams an hour unless you've practiced. And I took gels in every workout, every long run, even some of my easy runs, just to get used to them, just to cram them down my throat. I took way more than was necessary on different runs just because I wanted to just train my stomach. And so what I ended up doing was I put 7 gels, which I think is about 70 or 80 grams of carbs. And then I also put the Go G1M Plus in my bottles, and I put equal to, I think, about 90 grams of carbs in my bottles. So I took at least 120, maybe 150 grams of carbs an hour. And what comes with that is stomach troubles. So when I've tried to overdo the carb intake, I get in trouble with my stomach, and I almost shit my pants. So another thing, I was on Chat and I was like, hey Chat, what if I took Imodium before the race? Would that help? And it gave me this long synopsis of like how runners have taken Imodium, staggered it out so that you have coverage for the 2 hours of the race. So I took 3 Imodium and I staggered them out every 30 minutes, taking the last one right before the race. So an hour before, 30 minutes before, and then right before the race. I didn't have a single stomach issue. And I've never had a race where I'm like, oh shit, I'm about to shit my pants. And then sometimes it goes away. I've never, ever had that. And I took 3 Imodium. It never even crossed my mind. I never had one little worry. Wow. Yeah. And so, man, I think when we talk about, when I told you 10 out of 10, like nutrition, my ankle, Chat GPT, and then another huge, I mean, all my gels in my pockets, all my bottles, I missed my first bottle, but that was okay. I got all my other bottles. And then another huge thing was the pacers and the pace group and the pack. And so we had 2 Olympians pacing us, and they did such a great job. Well, they did a great job for me. They helped me perfectly. We went through half a minute fast. So we were on basically 2:15 flat pace going through half. When we went through half, we went through 107. I was 107.32. And so in my head, I was like, oh shit, 107.32. That's 2:16.04 pace. So I did the math wrong in my head going through half. And so in my head, I'm kind of holding on to this pack. Like I'm like holding on. I'm off the back. I've actually talked to a couple runners like, hey, let's form a little sub pack back here and get that 2:15.59. And everyone's like, yeah. And then no one does it. We all just stay with the pack. So we go through half in 107.32. So that's in my head it was actually 2:15 flat or 2:15.04. And I'm like, I'm 4 seconds slow, 2:16.04. I'm 4 seconds slow. I need to get my shit together. So I'm like, let's go. Let's get it together. I know I'm better than this. So at that point, I think a couple of miles went by and I was like, okay, I need to get up in this pack and like, get my head in this fucking game because I'm off the back. And so I'm struggling. I push myself up there to the middle of the pack. And I'm like, oh, man, I was expecting to go, I was fine going through half slow because I was like, I'll make time up, but I didn't expect to feel the way I did. So we have about 6 miles left, and I pull up to Rory Linklater and I'm like, yo, are we on pace? And he's like, yo, man, like you could actually run like 5:20 pace for the rest of the race and you'll still qualify. And I'm like, what? How is that even possible? And so that really shook me. And I'm like in my head for the next 3 miles trying to do math again. Like I've been trying to do math this whole freaking race.
Should have had
and
me
I just
running
can't.
by you with my chat.
Yeah, exactly. If that would have been so. It's funny you said that because that's exactly was going through my head. It's like, what do I need to run to do this? But with 3 miles left, I could finally do the math in my head, and I was like, holy shit, I'm gonna qualify, and I could break 2:15. And so with 3 miles left, usually it's like, that's you're like god awful, feeling horrible. I had a little pep in my step because I'm like, I'm going to do this and I could break 2:15. With all that being said, I was cautious because I have fallen apart with a mile to go. So I was holding it together. I was pressing as hard as I could. And that 3 miles left, I was like, okay, I got this. And then coming down the chute, seeing 2:14 XX, I was like, fuck, that is so wild. I had literally no idea that's where I was going to be. So anyway, the Pacers were perfect. They drug me. CJ Albertson was the other Pacer. I love the way he raced it. Actually, honestly, Rory and CJ both are two of my favorite pro runners. I love the way they race. Rory is just like crushing it right now. But it was like 3 or 4 miles to go and CJ was there. I just, I said hi. I was kind of making little moves, not against him, just trying to like get my head in it and get going a little bit. So I'd make a little move and he'd come with me. And then I'd kind of settle in and I'd slow down and he'd slow down with me. And then I'd make another move and he'd go with me. And I was like, this dude has no idea who I am, but he has no idea how much he's helping me. Just having him there was so huge in those late miles. But yeah, I mean, that race, 10 out of 10, everything went perfectly. I don't expect that to ever happen again.
Hey, take it while you can, bask in it while you can. I guess the lessons from that are, we talk about the gloom and doom of AI, but it can make you a fast runner. So we'll give it its flowers there. My second question, TMI for sure, but the Modium you were talking about, I've heard people talk about this. Do you then eventually, does it settle down and you just start shitting your pants like crazy?
No. And so I was wondering if that was going to happen, and I was okay with
6
it.
p.m. race day, you're just in the bathroom the rest of the night.
Yeah. No, it was completely normal. Like I was completely normal afterwards. Like everything, like I'm telling you, it was perfect. Everything about that day was perfect. I mean, I was messed up afterwards. Like I was real messed up, and my stomach hurt a little bit, but nothing out of the normal. But no, I didn't have any like restroom emergencies or anything out of the ordinary after doing that. So I highly recommend it.
What's interesting is when we talked in September, it was recently after, like very recently after you'd sprained your ankle that first time, I think like a week after. And you had kind of talked about how the way you were talking, I remember I asked you an explicit question, which was like, are you done with marathons then? So it's funny, 3 months later that you run 2:14, you kind of took me through how workouts were going well, and then you kind of shift your perspective. But take me through some of that, where even 3 months before this race, it wasn't really on your radar. And do you think that mentally benefited you not having to be crazy locked in for this crazy long block and all this pressure and expectation then?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Yeah, I think the anticipation of like even getting into the real workouts is hard on your mind. I definitely think not even thinking about it was of great benefit. Again, like I don't think I can ever have this situation go exactly how it did, because that was something that went well, which was not knowing I was going to do that race. And yeah, I was kind of done with the marathon, especially like the beginning of this year. I was just burnt out and I was kind of defeated because I'd run the same time 3 years in a row. It's tough. You put your heart and soul into these marathon blocks, and to not have like a breakthrough is really tough. And that goes for anybody. That goes if you're training for 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. Like we all put the time and the effort in over months, and to have a disappointing race is just so defeating. I think I had someone tell me that they didn't think I could do it, whether that was sarcasm or not. I took it personal. And that's kind of what lit the fire. I also had some brands be like, yo, you're like our credibility athlete. Like we need you to like show the credibility. And I'm like, well, freak, what kind of credibility athlete am I that doesn't even qualify for the trials? like at bare minimum, I think that should be, I mean, not necessarily, but for me, like I should be able to do that. And so that really kind of lit a fire. I guess there's no motivation like trying to prove someone wrong.
So what do you want me to publicly state right now that you can't do?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I make $1 million in a year is my next goal.
Tell me what houses to tell you that you can't sell.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, please. Hey, that's a funny story. I had this listing that it was, some thought it was out of my scope, and it was ultra luxury, and it was bigger house than I've ever sold, but it went perfect and I crushed it, and it sold is the highest sale in that neighborhood, over $1 million, like $1 million over the highest sale in that neighborhood. So tell me I can't do something.
So all the executives who got the $1 million homes, call Mitch, he'll be your realtor. How does that even work, by the way? Is it the seller just looks online, picks a realtor that you get a call? Okay.
Basically. Yeah.
How do you maximize your chances of being picked by
you just know, you got to know people. Like it's all about who you know. Like my business, 99% of my deals are runners or friends of runners or cyclists or friends of cyclists. Wow. And so it is 1000% a career of how big is your database? How many people do you know? And that's, I mean, it kind of takes me back to like the whole community aspect of it. I was so for community prior to real estate that like, it's really just put me in a good spot. I do what I can for the community, and the community shows up for me. At the end of the day, people work with who they like. Like there's real estate. It's not rocket science. It's not brain surgery. It's relatively simple. There's a lot to it, and you got to know a few things, but after you do that, like, it's basically like, does the seller like you, or do they like another person? And so that's kind of how it goes.
Move to Columbus and sell me a home. Is that what I'm hearing? Dude, the market here, I know nothing about real estate, but I mean, Columbus is booming. It'll never become what Austin is, but like a lot of people don't realize Columbus is the 15th biggest city in America. Our suburbs seem a lot more developed than Austin. Austin seems more apartment based. You know this so much better than me. But our suburbs, like Dublin and New Albany, I'll send you some Zillow listings so you see what we're cooking with here.
Please.
Ridiculous. And the price for what these would be in Austin, again, you're paying to be in Austin, right?
You're right.
You're paying to see Mitch Ammons on the trail every day. I get it. Like, there's value in that. But it's ridiculous. But specifically from a land perspective, there's no land you're not getting acres of land, whereas you can get that in Columbus. So
Austin's very expensive.
Yeah. What are the most expensive real estate city markets in America?
I mean, LA and New York for sure.
Okay.
I mean, LA and New York are the most, and then you get into some coastal properties. Aspen, I think actually Crested Butte has Durango, Crested Butte, one of those little remote ski towns. Aspen has the most price per square foot in all of America. So one of those mountain towns, actually. Yeah. I think it's
Do those people just rent out when it's ski season or not ski season?
No, bro. Those people don't even care. They just got so much money. That's their second, third, fourth, fifth house. Nobody in Aspen lives there as their primary residence. It's not their home. It's their vacation house, and it probably just sits vacant all year long.
Wow.
Till they come. Yeah.
Wow. What from what with the wealthy people you've worked with, or even just like from studying people, knowing people, at what point of wealth do you think it like really doesn't matter making more? For instance, I was talking to you've probably been on their podcast. Do you know the Life in Stride boys?
Mm-hmm. I know.
Yeah, they're great guys. Hilarious. Yeah. But we were talking about Mark Zuckerberg because I met him last year. I ran with him, and we were debating. We were talking about like his net worth, and I was like, oh, I think it's 100 billion. And then I was like, no, I think it's 260 billion. And they're like, that's a big difference. And I'm like, no, it's not. You can't. There's that money's just sitting there. So at what point of wealth, figure wise, do you think it's just like doesn't matter how much more you make?
Man, I think that's really relative, because I mean, I think once you have a liquid 20 million, there's really not much you can't do. Maybe you're not owning planes and yachts, but you're flying them and you're riding on them. I mean, I don't know. My goal, I would love 10 million in the bank That's sort of where I'm at right now. I don't really, it's a tough question right there. But I think when you get into the billions and multi-millions, it's just kind of all the same. You want to buy a city or whatever, like you probably could. I don't know. That's a great question though.
I think the smartest people, what they do is they make a lot of money and then they just invest in startups that make a lot of sense. Have you seen Jake Paul's investment portfolio?
Yeah, it's insane.
It's ridiculous, but no one knows about it. They just know him from his boxing. He's a genius. He's actually a genius.
When you get to 10 million, you can just sit back and invest. You don't, there's no more, there's no more. Yeah. Once you're 10 million, even maybe 8 million, like you can set up your life and your family's life strictly by investing. And yeah, that's the goal.
What percentage of your conversations, easy runs with people are business, real estate versus like running, specifics, talking about your runs, your training, your races, or pro running news, whatever it might be? What's the breakdown?
That's a really great question. And I've really focused on shifting that because I show up to a run club and, it used to be 99% of the conversation is, hey, what's your next race? And I'm like, well, it's this. And I'm like, hey, what's your next race? And they're like, it's this. And it's, how'd that race go? And how'd this race go? But over the last year and a half or so, it's a whole lot of, hey, Mitch, how's the real estate market? Hey, Mitch, how'd that deal go? Hey, Mitch, I really, that was purposeful. I do want to I don't want to be known as Mitch the runner. I want to be known as Mitch is a nice guy, and he runs a lot and he sells real estate and knows a good amount about both. And so ask me questions about both. But yeah, I'd say it's 50-50 at this point. I'll tell you, there's not a single run where real estate doesn't come up, whether it's completely random strangers. You tell someone that you're in real estate, they're going to say, oh, well, how's the market? Because everyone likes to talk about real estate. Yeah. Everyone lives in a home. Everyone's either renting or owning a home, and they want to know what the market's like, what their house is worth, or what's a good time to buy or rent or whatever. I think it's a conversation that everybody can have. And so it has picked up a lot, and I'm grateful for that.
What's the first like FU money purchase you'd make? And dream car, because I'm a car guy.
I like watches. I'm a watch guy lately. Okay. Over these last like 3 or 4 years. So I've bought some pretty belligerently purchased watches. But I think that my FU purchases are watches. I love watches. I think they're cool. They hold their value. They're pretty. It's like a work of art. I know it's pointless, but I like them. It's nothing other than I just think they're cool looking. And then as far as cars, I've got my dream car pretty much. It's a Z71 Tahoe. If I could literally have FU money and buy any car I'd want, that'd be like an F350 dually Super Duty diesel, and for no reason at all other than I just like them. I'm not hauling anything. I'm not pulling any houses. I just think they're so sick. So yeah, one day.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, so I hope Nick isn't listening. Although I think Nick would appreciate this. The only person who has a better slogan than BPN, in my opinion, like Go One More and For the Committed, I think are just two iconic ones. Yeah, but Patek, do you know what Patek's like marketing slogan is?
No, what is it?
Oh, it's genius, dude. It's you never actually own a Patek. You merely look at it. You merely look after it for the next generation.
That is exactly it. Yeah, I've heard that. Oh yeah, that's right.
So good.
Good. I actually watched like a little short documentary on it, and I remember that exactly.
Yeah,
they did that. That kind of that slogan kind of like made them take off. Like that did a whole lot for their brand.
Well, it's so good. It's like, hey, we make the best thing that will last way after your name.
That's correct. It's exactly the point. This is a generational purchase.
Yeah, and what man is not going to then be like, ooh, shiny object, I want that.
Exactly, that I can give to my kids.
Yeah, totally, man. Well, we're up on time here, so final question for you. We talked about sleep, nutrition, things that don't matter too much to you at the beginning of this conversation. What's one thing that matters to you that you think the rest of the audience should focus on in 2026 that they'll actually reap the rewards of down the road?
I sort of look at each day that I look at each day, and I kind of pick out different ways that I can inspire others to like just be go-getters. I consider myself a go-getter in every aspect of my life. I think I inspire people by showcasing that on social media. And the only reason I believe that is because I have been truly inspired by go-getters on social media. And that's in running, and that's in their careers, and that's in their home life. You mentioned Nick, man, that dude, like, and I've said this almost every podcast. Like when I first met Nick, I was like, yeah, this guy's fit as hell. Cool. Like that's fine. I got to know him, and I got to know the person that he is and how much he cares for literally everyone and everything, and how he makes time for his job, his fitness, his family, and never even bats an eye. Like that is my true inspiration. He strives to do his very best in everything he does. And there's a lot of those, right? But for me, every single day, no matter what I'm doing, whether it's my job, whether it's running, whether it's something to do with my friends, I try and do the absolute very best that I can. And if I'm showing it on social media, it's because I'm hoping to inspire someone to do the same, only because it worked for me. And that goes back to the very, very beginning in sobriety, when I saw those guys that were sober and happy and had everything that they wanted and needed. That literally was my only hope. And then the same thing went for running. When I saw these professional runners, or these runners that were faster than me, I saw them working so hard and getting to those goals that they set. And so I did the exact same thing, and it worked for me. And then in my career, I inserted myself next to these mentors who I thought were going to, I wanted what they had. And they're go-getters. They work so hard. They do everything they can for their clients. And I do the exact same thing. And all of those different people inspired me along the way. And so I want to show just a little bit of what I do, hopefully to inspire others. And lastly, to answer your question, I think we should all, whatever we're doing, do it out of like hopefully inspiring someone. Because I know for one thing, just trying to inspire others has made me better. And so I think it's a win-win situation all around. So I'll leave it with
Amen,
that.
Brother. Dude, you're a top G. I always appreciate our conversations. I say this across the board, but there are a few people I say this to. It's podcasts are mentally, emotionally draining. You got to be locked into conversation. It's rare when you can leave a conversation more energized than you came into it. I don't think I've ever left a conversation with you not feeling better on the other side of it than when I went into it. So you have me fired up, man. Got to get you on the podcast more. You're a wealth of knowledge and stories and inspiration. So keep crushing it, man. And at this rate, it seems like you do something crazy 3 months after our podcast. So I'll be looking out for you in April at this point.
Yeah. Call me after the last man standing.
I love it, man. Appreciate you.
All right, Don. Hey, thank you so much.